The earlier business what he was doing was in a small scale. Now he starts it in a larger scale. So you must read that part which tells about the journey to Madras, how the compartment is there. Okay, how the compartment is filled with people, how Margaya adjusts for all the situations there. There are many trips made by Dr. Pal between Margaya and the astrologer, wherein finally the horoscope matches. Hello everyone, I am Dr. Shalini, Professor of English, Vidhyaashram First Grade College, the Temple of Excellence, MYSURU. Today we are here to discuss about the part-wise summary of the text prescribed for you for third semester BCom. Today we are in the second part of the part-wise summary session. So in this session we shall be discussing about the part-wise summary. In the earlier session we had discussed about part 1 and 2. Okay, so today we'll be discussing about part 3, 4 and 5. Okay, so let us begin. What is there in part 3, 4 and 5? So let's begin our session. So we are now entering into part 3. Okay, so earlier session we had discussed up to part 2. So part 3 begins with Margaya going to this town bank to open his account. Okay, so he has got enough money now. So what he does is he wants to deposit it in a town bank. So he goes there to open an account. But there, the person who was supposed to help him to open the bank account, that is the accountant or somebody who is designated there, he is unaware of who is Margaya. So he doesn't allow him to open the account. It is not that he tells him directly, but he somehow just doesn't care for him too much. And later when he learns about Margaya, then he gives him utmost respect, and finally Margaya is successful in opening a bank account in that bank. Okay. So then what happens? He opens the account and comes back. While returning, he meets Dr. Pal. Okay, he comes to Margaya's house. So later, Margaya's wife Meenakshi comes to know that Dr. Pal was the one who has written the book that Margaya published. She is very reluctant to go in front of that person. So when Dr. Pal comes to Margaya's house, Meenakshi doesn't go and serve him anything. In turn, she sends it with Margaya only. Okay, so Dr. Pal and Margaya meet in Margaya's house, and there Dr. Pal suggests few business ideas to Margaya. Okay, so here after that Mr. Lal, that is Madan Lal. Okay, so the publisher, he offers a place for Margaya to open a new office. Okay, so Margaya was interested in making his own financial institution where he can lend money to people. So what he does is he inquires with Dr. Pal, and Mr. Lal has sent word with Dr. Pal that he is ready to give a place for office to Margaya. So he begins his own office there. Okay, he starts a financial institution wherein the money transaction can happen. Okay, so he starts lending money to people. The earlier business what he was doing was in a small scale. Now he starts it in a larger scale. Okay, so Margaya is now, he has now become a great money lender. Okay, so what happens on the other side? Balu keeps failing in his exams. Okay, so from the beginning he has seen the taste of money. So is not interested in studies. So what he does is though he tries very hard to study, no, his mind does not get concentrated on studies. Okay, so he keeps failing in the exams. Okay, so what Margaya advises him is, like when he goes, Margaya goes to Balu's room and sees the disorganized room. He tells him to organize it properly. He tells him to be little systematic, but that doesn't enter into Balu's head. Okay, so he keeps failing in the exams. As a last attempt, Margaya takes Balu to the exam hall and he gives some suggestions to Balu how to attempt the exam, and he drops him to the exam hall. Okay, so he drops him to exam hall and he comes back and waits there. So what he thinks is this one, Balu should go to the exam and he has to attempt it. He should not run away because he is failing in the exams. He should not return home without writing the exam. So that was his thought, and he drops him into the exam hall and then comes out. Not to the exam center, I'm talking about the exam hall. Okay, so he drops him inside and comes out. Again, the result is failure itself. Again, Balu fails in the exam. So even after 2-3 attempts, Balu fails in the SSLC exam. Okay, so Margaya insists Balu to put more efforts. Okay, he asks him to study more. He asks him to put more efforts to this studies so that he can pass. At least if he passes SSLC, then Margaya will be able to either get him a job or do something for him, some business or something wherein at least a minimum qualification is there. In earlier days, it was like you pass SSLC and you have achieved something great, and that will be the base for whatever job you are going to get. So earlier days, that was the mindset. So same thing with Margaya also. He wants his son to pass at least SSLC. So that's why he insists Balu to put in more effort. He goes to such an extent that he just goes to the school and get the SSLC register from the school to show Balu what is his performance. Okay, the SSLC register is actually a very confidential thing, and it is allowed, like it is not given to the public. Okay, so nobody is allowed to even check that. But Margaya, being influential, he carries that home to show his son his performance. Okay, so this actually irritates Balu. Okay, so this irritates Balu, and what he does, he just runs away from his home. Okay, so Balu all of a sudden disappears. What happens to Meenakshi? Because Meenakshi and Margaya, they are too attached to Balu. Okay, at least Margaya has some other work outside the house. He can go and he can do his work and he can forget Balu's disappearance. But what happens to Meenakshi? She is not able to stand Balu's disappearance. So she just goes very weak. Then she has lost the taste of food. Nothing. She's not doing anything. Okay, she's just doing whatever work she's doing it very mechanically. Okay, so she also tries telling Margaya what he has to do to find Balu. Okay, but Margaya is in his own world of earning money. The only thing that was running in Margaya's mind is to earn more and more money. Then finally what happens? Margaya is very busy lending and making money. So what happens? Meenakshi actually accuses her husband for his callous attitude. Callous means careless. Being careless is also called as callous. So this attitude is accused by Meenakshi, and she says, for you, you have another work to do to forget whatever has happened at home. But what will I do? So she insists Margaya to find out what has happened to Balu. But finally, one day, what happens? A news from Madras reaches Meenakshi. So the news of Balu's death reaches Margaya's house. One day when Margaya is returning from his office, there are so many people crowded near Margaya's house. He gets scared. He thinks that something might have happened to Meenakshi or maybe his brother. He rushes to the house. Then he understands, then he learns that the news of Balu's death has reached Meenakshi. That is, Balu has expired in Madras. Balu is dead in Madras. But they have not received the body. They have not seen what has happened. So no news at all. Only this news of death has reached Margaya's house. So what does he do? He thinks always, he is finally very dejected about life. So Meenakshi has lost everything. Now she feels that she has lost everything in life. So she has no hopes at all to live further. Then what happens? Margaya's brother actually tells him to go to Madras and find out, is the news of Balu's death true or not? Okay, he wanted Margaya to go to Madras and check the fact of Balu's death. Margaya is very reluctant to go. He feels Balu is dead, and even if he goes, that is of no use at all. So though reluctant, he feels, yes, I'll go and I'll find out. Only because of Meenakshi's sake, he decides to go. But he says his brother should not accompany him. He's going to go alone. Okay, so he goes there. Then his journey in the train to Madras. Okay, so that's very interesting. Okay, so you must read that part which tells about the journey to Madras, how the compartment is there. Okay, how the compartment is filled with people, how Margaya adjusts for all the situations there, whatever comes up. So he adjusts to everything and he finally reaches Madras. But in the meantime, during the journey, he is acquainted, he gets to know one of the police inspectors who is also traveling to Madras. Okay, so there he meets that policeman, then he tells about himself. Okay, the reason why he's going to Madras, he tells about all that, the whole story he tells. Then policeman, he offers to help Margaya. Okay, the police inspector tells him, you don't worry, I will help you. So finally what happened? Somehow Margaya goes with the police inspector. He searches a lot and finally he finds Balu with the help of the police inspector. Now who wrote that? This one, the death news to Meenakshi. There was one mad person who just used to take somebody's address and he used to simply write a card and post it. That would reach the person's place and they would be in panic. Okay. So finally, that was the other part of the story. Here Balu is found by Margaya with the help of this police inspector. Finally, police inspector advises Balu to go with his father and to lead a very good life, to be a very good son to his parents. Okay, so here Margaya is seen off at the police station and he travels back to Malgudi. Okay, so from the railway station, the police inspector puts them back to the train and sends them to Malgudi. At that time, for Margaya, police inspector was like a god only because he has found his son. So finally, Balu returns to Malgudi. Meenakshi is very happy looking at her son alive. So she and Margaya, they decide to keep Balu happy thereafter. Okay, so they decide they will not scold him for anything. They will not put him back to this studies and all. So however he wants to live, he may live. That is what they plan. Okay, so finally what he does, he gets a royal treatment after returning from Madras. Okay, so he has become a king now. He's getting a royal treatment. The same thing had happened when Balu had burnt his finger also. Then also he had got a royal treatment. Okay, so then had he been repaired, now he wouldn't have done this. So childhood he was not repaired. Now they had to face the same situation again. So he is getting a royal treatment. So this was in part 3. When we move on to part 4, there is another part of the story that unfolds. Balu was enjoying his life. The royal treatment he was enjoying. He can take how much ever money he wants from his father. He'll just go out, spend, smoke, drink, everything and enjoy life. Okay, so this was what was going on. So finally, Margaya decides to do something for Balu. He continues his business, the lending, then giving away interest, everything continues. Okay, Margaya's business continues. So now what Margaya does is, he wanted to control Balu. He wanted Balu's life to be little organized. So then he looks for a bride for Balu. Okay, so he looks for a bride for his son. Here you have to mention about Brinda. Okay, Brinda was the wife of Balu. Okay, she was just 17-year-old girl. Okay, she was just 17 years old. Balu's and Brinda's horoscopes did not match. Okay, Balu's and Brinda's horoscope did not match. So even though the horoscopes did not match, what happens is Margaya just shares this fact, that is, the horoscope hasn't matched. So this fact is shared with Dr. Pal by Margaya. So what Dr. Pal does is, he tells him, this is not a proper priest, not the proper astrologer who is looking at the horoscope. Let us go for another astrologer, he says. Since Margaya was very busy, Dr. Pal takes the responsibility of going to the astrologer. There are many trips made by Dr. Pal between Margaya and the astrologer, wherein finally the horoscope matches. How is it possible? That's because Dr. Pal has adjusted that astrologer to tell that the horoscopes match. Okay, so it is not even mentioned whether Dr. Pal has met the astrologer many a times, but finally the horoscopes have matched. Finally the wedding takes place. Initially everything was fine. Later on, Margaya wanted to start a new business now. Okay, he wanted to increase his business. So what he does is, like, he wanted to do something for his son, like more of property and all he wanted to do for his son. So he starts a new business, and at his new business place when he was there, so Balu comes and asks for share of his ancestral property. Okay, he comes and asks for ancestral property share. Then Margaya asks him who has instigated him, because he was not like this. But finally there were some altercations, and finally Margaya just gives him half a rupee and says, this was what my father gave me, that is, he gave me 1 rupee, I am giving you half of it. Okay, so then he says, what about this property? Then Margaya says, all this I have earned, but whatever came to my share as my share from my father was only 1 rupee. So Balu is very upset. He wishes to go away from, that is, he wanted to stay separately with his wife. Okay, so he goes away from Margaya's house. They live separately. So Balu's family is separate and Margaya's family is living separately now. After that, Dr. Pal actually becomes the constant visitor to Balu's house. Okay, he becomes a constant visitor. Dr. Pal used to come home when Brinda was there also. He used to come home, he used to play cards, he used to drink there only. Like he used to have lunch, dinner, everything there only in Balu's house. They both were very close actually. Dr. Pal and Balu were very close to each other. This, though Margaya got to know this, he did not like Dr. Pal. Though Margaya was close to Dr. Pal, he did not like Dr. Pal entering too much into the son's life, that is Balu's life. So what he does is, he thinks of involving Dr. Pal in his new business. Okay, even Dr. Pal had no other means of earning money. So he also was thinking of starting a new business. So what Margaya does is, he says, Dr. Pal, that let us start a new business. Okay, so even Dr. Pal agrees for that. So in this way, Margaya thought he can just keep Dr. Pal away from Balu's life. Okay, but later what happens? He wanted to buy a new car. Margaya wanted to buy a new car now because he was moving around too much. Okay, and also he was carrying home so much of cash that it was not possible for him to keep it either in his office place, or he can ask his the servants to carry it back home. So he wanted to buy a car for his movement. Fine. Then actually accountant had lot of work. He had to count piles and piles of money, and he had to segregate it and keep it. So accountant had too much of work. Okay, so then after Balu asked for share in ancestral property, Margaya is too upset. Then what happens? Balu just has altercations and he leaves the place. Okay, that is the wherever they have quarreled, that is a new office place, Balu leaves that place. Then after that day's work, Margaya feels very bad. Okay, Margaya is very upset. After Balu quarrels with Margaya and leaves, Margaya was very disturbed by his son's behavior. He wanted to know the reason why he has done this. So what he does, he completes that day's work and he goes to meet. He doesn't go to his house, he goes directly to Balu's house. Okay, after he goes to Balu's house, before going to his home, he visits the son's house. Okay, so there what happens? Who opens the door? Here Brinda is alone. Okay, sorry, Brinda and the child. Okay, Brinda and the child are there, and Brinda opens the door. Margaya asks for Balu. Where is Balu? So then that was the time when Brinda confesses to her father-in-law what her husband was doing. So she tells about Dr. Pal's visit. Okay, even though Margaya has tried to keep Dr. Pal away from Balu's life, Dr. Pal used to visit their house. Okay, then they never used to stay at home. Dr. Pal used to take him out. Okay, so Dr. Pal's visit to their house, and also Dr. Pal and Balu were very close now. They used to go out. Okay, so they never used to stay at home. This and all he learnt it. Margaya got to know, and he also got to know that Balu has almost crossed the limits. Okay, so then what he does, he advises Brinda just to close the door. Be safe, I'll advise Balu. That's what he said. That's what Margaya said, and Brinda just latches the door after Margaya leaves the place. Margaya was about to go out of the gate. Just as he reaches the gate, that time Dr. Pal and Balu, they enter. Okay, so that time they were coming. So that is seen in part 5. So Balu accompanied by Dr. Pal, okay, in his car. Okay, so there they both come, and as Margaya was about to exit the gate, they both have reached the place. So that time, Margaya, though he wanted to take patients, they were giggling. That is Balu, Dr. Pal, and 2 other girls. They were all giggling. Okay, so that irritates, that annoys Margaya, and he just goes and slaps Balu nicely. Okay, he hits him nicely. At that time, Brinda just comes out of the house and she somehow takes Balu inside the house. But what Margaya does, he slaps Dr. Pal on the face, and he just slaps him nicely, so Dr. Pal gets injured. He goes and lodges a police complaint, and he starts disgracing Margaya. Okay, so here Margaya has an altercation with Dr. Pal. Okay, so Dr. Pal is beaten by Margaya nicely. Okay, so then what happens, he lodges a police complaint also. Okay, so then Dr. Pal lodges a complaint also. Okay, so then nothing about the complaint is mentioned there, but he's discrediting Margaya. That is, he spreads bad words about Margaya is what is given in the novel. Nothing about like Margaya's arrest and all is nothing is mentioned there. So only this discrediting of Margaya is mentioned there. Okay, so this happens, and afterwards, whoever has invested the money at Margaya's financial institution, everybody starts coming and taking the money back. That is, whatever deposits were made, everybody started taking it back. That was because Dr. Pal has gone and spoken bad about Margaya to all those who had invested. Okay, so everybody, they come and take one by one, they start taking the deposits back. Since Margaya has not invested that money which he has received anywhere else, there was no returns at all. So whatever money he had, whatever they had invested, that is there. Whatever interest he was giving is his own expense. Okay, so when they ask you about writing the relevance of financial expert, you may mention this also. He was a financial expert in the beginning, so there are some scenes that support that. But he was not a financial expert. This scene supports that statement. Okay, he had not invested it anywhere, so he used to spend from his pocket. Okay, so then what happens? Everybody comes and takes the deposits back. So what he does, whatever jewelry he had got it done, whatever car or whatever property he had done after earning money, everything goes back. Okay, he takes little time with everybody and finally clears everything out. He was so much affected psychologically also. Whenever somebody comes to his house also, he used to tell his brother, see if anybody has come to ask for the money back. So he was that much like, whoever comes, not only people who had deposited the money, if anybody else comes also, he used to feel that, yeah, somebody has come to take the money back only. Okay, so that way Margaya's downfall begins, and finally he comes back to his original position. Literally, he is left with nothing other than the house. Okay, so initially what he was, he comes back to the same position, that is with the iron box. He is there at home, at his own house. Okay, so finally after this what happens, Balu rejoins Margaya. Now Balu understands his father's position. There also has happened a discussion between Brinda and Balu wherein his eye opened. Okay, so that discussion was an eye opener to him, and finally he comes back to Margaya and lives happily with his parents. Okay, so Margaya is not only he is upset little that he has lost all money, but later he is extremely happy that he can finally live with the grandchild. So that is the thing which has made Margaya very much relieved. Okay, so this was the part 5 summary of the financial expert. Okay, so I wish you can just go through from part 1 to part 5 and understand the whole story. So let us discuss more about this when you come back to the class. Okay, So in the next session, let us meet with this language component, that is transitive and intransitive verbs. So transitive and intransitive words you need to understand, because you need to understand active and passive voice in a better way. So first, understanding transitive and intransitive verbs is very much essential. Okay. So let's meet again with another more interesting session. So till then, take care. I wish you have to go through all the sessions for to understand the summary. Okay. So take care. See you soon with another more interesting topic. So bye bye. Take care.